Guys, I messed up, right? I went into it thinking that making decks was going to be really easy because I already play other card games. But little did I know, the community sure showed me how wrong I was. Saw it! Hello everybody, hopefully you're having a wonderful, fantabulous, and mystical day over here on the mystical side of life. As per last episode on the School of Destruction or the School of Archapello video explain that I made, if you hadn't seen that, feel free to drop on back to the last video and reference it because it has a lot of cool lore and understanding in order for you guys to understand what's going to be presented in this video. And so, guys, I messed up, right? I went into it thinking that making decks was going to be really easy because I already play other card games. But little did I know, the community sure showed me how wrong I was. And so, knowing this and understanding this, I'm going to share with you guys some stuff that I had to put together in order for me to develop my my deck, hypothetically speaking, if all the cards got in. And then also just things I've picked up and learned throughout the iterations, right? So, the original goal of the deck was to create a deck that deals damage like a burn deck from MTG. More specifically, a Goblin Burn deck. If any of you guys are familiar with Goblin Burn decks, you would know that Goblin Burn decks usually synergize by summoning a bunch of goblins and going face, right? You want to usually get the advantage in numbers rather than having the advantage in heavy units, which is usually a really good idea. But to compound onto that, on top of that, usually some of the goblins have different effects. For example, we have Gutter Snipe, which is whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, which in relevance to the School of Destruction in terms of collective, the character is actually like you would be casting actions, which is the equivalent to a spell or sorcery. And then Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. So why is this important, right? Why is this card something that needed to be put into this game? Or something that I think we should put into this game, right? And I quickly realized through a couple different iterations and through talking with multiple people in the Discord of Collective. So if you haven't checked that out, definitely check it out. Collective, if you look it up on Google, just put Collective CCG Discord and you'll find it immediately. It's pretty available and ready. So, the reason that it's important for me to explain this is because dealing 2 damage when you cast an action in the game is really, really powerful. And it incentivizes people to just play that card and then just spam spells or spam actions that cost virtually nothing, right? And so why is that bad, right? So the reason that that's bad is because you don't necessarily want to encourage somebody to just spam spells because, you know, that's kind of boring because there's no board presence and you don't actually need other units for that. You just play a couple different Gutter Snipes, like multiple of them, and then you just beat the opponent by casting 6 or 7 spells. Now the HP gap difference in Collective opposed to Magic the Gathering is quite significant. So in Magic the Gathering, you originally had 20 HP, whereas in Collective you have 25 HP. Now, why is that important? So the reason it's important is because of lethal range. So burn decks typically would do a certain amount of damage, and if they would heal, it would like make it more difficult for you to actually defeat them. And reason being is because usually your deck only has a very certain amount of damage that can cast. So, knowing this, you have to be preemptive and actually be proactive about how you do your damage and think and be big brain and understand exactly what it is you're trying to do. So having the actual damage that you need when you need it and how you use it is very crucial to the actual build. Which is why I have kind of scrounged together a couple of different cards that I think would be a good addition to the deck in terms of adding it to collective. Because when you're adding cards to collective, like when you're putting it up on the subreddit, or if you're putting it up, like if it hits in game and it synergizes really, really well with another deck that's going to make things not very fun for the community, you have to think about that a lot because it's going to impact not only a deck or like one playstyle, but the entire game as a whole. And just imagining, somebody just playing a gutter snipe and then just spamming action spells is going to not be very fun. So we had to change the stats around and kind of customize it and really think about how we were going to play this deck. And now I got a lot of backlash because of the way that I was originally building my deck, and I'll show you guys the first iteration of the deck where it doesn't really do much. Even now, the current iteration of the deck, which was last edited on December 9th of 2020, you can see that there is like a still kind of issues with the deck. I'll show those in 1 second. And I'll kind of go into why that is. But this is essentially like the Goblin Burn MTG section here is basically like a reference sheet of like what to make going into it. Like going into the whole thing, because the idea of the deck is not only to burn your opponent, but it's also to attack with units. So we had to find a healthy balance between the two because it's going to kind of help out in terms of like just straight up attacking and making the game fun and having like mechanical reasons of doing things, not only to like help the game, but like or mechanical functions. Like when this unit is attacking with an allied unit, it gives the allied unit +1/+1, like things like that. But also like when this unit attacks, or when this unit attacks and the defending player is selected, defending player or defending unit is takes so much damage, like it's destroyed or something. I mean, it's hard to make hard removal in Mind because one of Mind's parameters, which I might get into a little bit later, is it cannot have destroy cards, or it can't have removal because of its limitations. But I personally think that that's a little weird, and I'll get into that a whole nother video. But we're going to stay on topic, and we're going to continue with the iterations of the thing. Now, before I continue, the artwork used in the background is not mine. It is made by, once again, Arseny Chebionik. Chebionkin. I'm really hoping I can eventually say this name. His artwork is really good. He's an environment artist. You can find him on ArtStation by the name of Arseny, and then the same last name that I can't seem to pronounce. He's a really cool dude. I haven't spoken to him, but I've seen his artwork, and I just love his environment. They're just very, very, very good. But I think for this, like the idea of this deck is it sits very well, and it's perfect use to kind of share. And so we move forward. So you can see all of the decks that I've been attempting to make. So in the first iteration, we have a lot of stuff. Now, this deck was one of the first ones made. As you can see right above where it says deck list, we don't actually have any date. And the reason behind that is because I didn't think I was going to make a ton of iterations. I really didn't. I thought it was going to be, I'm going to make one deck, we're going to put it together, and we're going to throw it in the game. People are going to like it. But you learn, you live and you learn, and you don't complain. So this deck had a lot of problems. As you can see, a lot of the cards that are crossed out are actually cards that just straight up didn't work. I could go into the reason why they all worked, but the main takeaway from this is never go into things thinking that you're going to know like what to do from the get-go, right? Going into the first set of cards, it's not so much that I thought that I was going to just be able to make the easiest cards because nobody has made them. but rather I thought that it was going to be easy in the sense of um, game design, right? So when I say that, like, I thought designing cards was going to be simple, but it's actually not. There's actually a lot of things that go into designing cards, and different decks revolve around different mechanics. This deck in particular revolves around the mechanic of dealing damage via spells, but also dealing damage via like units. But at the same time, your units can't be very big because the deck prioritizes having numbers versus having one big unit, which is difficult to do when most of the cards in Magic the Gathering, which was one of the references, summons multiple things that are one cost or that are 1/1 creatures. If you aren't familiar with the 1/1 creature thing, the idea is basically you have a lot of units. So even if they have one unit or two units that are very strong, they can't block all of you because you're fighting with numbers, not with heavy units. And so this goes into the next part, which is just balance, right? So I am lucky enough to have a good team of friends that are helping me put together this deck. Um, I don't know if all of them are okay with me disclosing who they are because I actually haven't asked permission to use their names in this video. But they are very cool individuals, and some of them are really, really good at blocking cards. If you aren't familiar with blocking cards in collective card game, they have a function that you guys get to design your cards, which is essentially what we're doing here. I've always been very passionate about making cards and card games as general as a whole, but I'm not very skilled at the technical part of it in terms of the deck builder and the card builder, I mean. So I have friends that are helping me build the cards via text. Um, so saying that once we blocked a lot of these cards and we actually began to play them, we noticed a lot of issues and inconsistencies. So what ended up happening is that some cards were just straight up overpowered and just wouldn't work because they're so strong, because if you put them with other cards in the actual game, they'd be absolutely broken and they'd ruin the game. Other cards would be underpowered or undervalued, which would be, for example, Devin of Archapello was doing little to nothing in the deck, while Emilio of Archapello was also doing little to nothing. Um, or actually, it wasn't so much that it wasn't doing anything. It's just in that game in particular, it just wasn't getting enough value. And then some cards, just in general, like Unexpected Turn of Events, which is on the bottom left-hand side, just didn't see very much use because it was such a high cost with such little turnaround. And then it's just the list goes on and on and on about the issues. One of the biggest issues was Wounded Scholar, which is in the bottom center column. Um, when a unit was injured, attacking units gain +2/+2. Now, why is this broken? What's the big problem with this card? Well, when we were blocking the card, like me and my friend, one of the big issues was that it would give a bonus to all the units. This includes enemy units. So if they summoned a unit and one of the units on their side was injured, because we were attacking in aggro with low costing minions, all of the units of the enemy and ours would get buffed. But because they're playing bigger units, they would get a bigger benefit from getting the buff. What I'm saying is we're probably going to have to move it into a part 2 because honestly, there's so much information here and I don't want anything to get lost. So if you like the video, make sure to slam that like button. Comment down below what your thoughts on the deck building process is. How do you make cards? What do you prioritize? And do you reference anything? Because a lot of people, sometimes make decks and or cards rather, and they don't really have a goal in mind. They just kind of know kind of what they want to do. But I wanted to share this little bit of information because it's something I enjoy, and I've been having a lot of fun with it, not only as a concept side of stuff of like just like thinking of stuff, but also the art stuff, which we're going to be exploring after the part 2 to this video. So I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to stay mystical.